Great. Okay. So, hello everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mark, for this great opportunity again to be here. We're here classically, let's say, I think it's third year we're here already. It's always amazing to be listening to all these great presentations. It's kind of hard to talk after Sean. Thank you for this, Sean. But anyway, please let me introduce myself. My name is Alexander Puchovsky. I'm here today on behalf of Bureau van Dijk company. I'm key account manager and of the clients concentrating mainly on procurement and credit clients in our Central Eastern Europe region. This we operate from Bratislava. So I'm sure many of you know as well, but for those who don't, please just let me introduce the company very shortly. We have been based in Belgium, in Brussels, in early 70s, concentrating on gathering the information about the banks in a paper form. Many years since then have passed, and today we are one of the largest providers of company information, either private or public, and also providers of the complex global solutions for different segments. Today we have more than 800 employees operating the world market from more than 36 offices across the globe. And maybe the biggest news in our company is that this year we have been acquired by Moody's Analytics company. So maybe just some short facts in numbers about the company. I don't want to bother you with this along, but currently we provide information on more than 220 million public and private companies, 85 million different shareholders across the companies we provide info on. More than 100 active and more than 500 million historical ownership links between different companies. Over 1.5 million information on mergers and acquisition deals, and just for your imagination, only last month there have been 6.5 million companies in our portfolio which changed one of its ownership ties and ownership structures, so that's quite a huge number. So what we specialize in form of segments, it's of course credit risk, it's procurement, but also compliance, transfer pricing, data management, sales and marketing, and mergers and acquisitions. It's quite a wide spectrum. I would like to talk today a little bit about the risk assessment process as such. We have a quite broad range of companies we cooperate with, our customers, coming from different segments, including some of the largest organizations in the world. And that's why we have quite a good overview on different approaches which certain companies apply for their credit risk assessment process. I would maybe divide them into two main groups. First would be the companies which tend to use more traditional approach to the risk assessment. Then those companies which tend to search for different options, how to improve the process constantly in order to make the whole risk assessment process more effective. So, of course, today, with constant strive for larger turnover and larger growth, it might be necessary to optimize also the processes which we use, because of course traditional ones prove themselves throughout time, but as the time is approaching, we really have to also bear this in mind. So I would like to divide my presentation into three different, let's say, segments. First will be the data as the core of each good and well-done analysis. Then the second part, the process as the workflow itself and the risk analysis itself. And of course also results coming after the risk analysis, also combined with some shorter case study of one of our clients and the practical solution which he has implemented. On each of these three groups, I would like to demonstrate maybe the difference between the classical approach, the traditional one, and the new approaches available on the market. So let's start with the data. Of course, all the companies, when they start assessing their clients, they take into consideration mainly their own experience with the client. That means either payment history or a historical volume of disputes. Of course, this is the core, but this information might not reveal the complex threat which could potentially customer cost to our budget. That's why, of course, companies tend to use different kind of questionnaires and different kind of credit applications just in order to get the data from the client directly. Again, very clever. On the other hand, we have to bear in mind that this is something, these information are something what clients send us. This is not the validated information, and in many times it doesn't have to be correct. Most of the time, I'm sure this is unintentional, but we also went across some cases when the customer was misleading its creditor on purpose, and this is just how it can happen. So what is necessary to do is to validate this information also from some third source, which should be independent. And now, without one single source of information, this might be quite a challenge, because what then analysts tend to do is that they are trying to gather the bits and pieces about the company on different sources, such as. This is just an example, but we all can imagine, we know it, how time-consuming it is to go to different sources, take some partial information from one source and from the other, then we have to gather this all together and additionally even put it usually manually within the traditional approach to different kind of spreadsheets. Now, even imagine that different states have different legislation according to the collection of the data about the companies. Some states have stronger legislation, some have weaker requirements on the companies to file their data. And that means that, let's say, the listed companies' information are easy to find. They are compulsory to be published. On the other hand, the vast majority of the portfolio, ours or yours, are not listed companies, and in some states they do not even have the obligation to publish the info. Even if they do so voluntarily, this doesn't have to be a complex. That means you can find the financials, but you don't see the ownership. You can see the ownership, but you don't see the financials. So again, that's a very time-consuming process for the analyst to gather all the information together and put it manually into the spreadsheet. Even if we take into consideration that an ideal situation can happen, that the company who is not bound by the law to publish its accounts publishes this on, voluntarily, what can happen now? You can see different reports and different financial statements of different companies. They're all in different formats. They can be based on local accounting standards, and of course they can be even in different languages. So this again produces additional need for the analyst to put the bits and pieces together just in order to be able to start the analysis itself. On the other hand, example of modern solution could be at least to start with some general unified source of information where we can find almost everything what we need about majority of our portfolio. We have it in understandable language, all information together, ideally also in a structured way, so the analyst can get used to the feeling that he immediately knows where to look for which kind of info. So this already can be a good start for the analysis. So let's talk about the process now. After quite a time-consuming gathering of the information and putting manually into the spreadsheets, often also quite time-consuming process comes. After applying a risk model on the info which we find out, we get the result either in form of the scoring of the company or in form of the probability of default or calculated credit limit. Again, these results have to be usually manually input into different CRMs. Of course, if the calculated credit limit exceeds the competencies of a particular analyst, he has to forward this either to the team leader or to the credit manager again, who, after doing the approval refusal process, again has to delegate someone to put this information into the CRM. This doesn't have to seem much, but cumulatively, this is a huge amount of manual work which just draws us back from the real purpose of the analyst's tasks and its analysis itself, not gathering the information and putting them copy-paste into the spreadsheets. So, yeah. What can happen after this in the traditional process is that, of course, due to the limited amount of analysts, which comes from understandably limited amount of resources which are dedicated to the credit risk department functioning, those departments are simply not able to cover and to analyze their whole portfolio and all the companies they come across. That means that the manual input and the manual work directly influences how high your backlog is. That means we only cover the part of the portfolio which might be the riskiest one, but what about the rest of the companies then? Of course, here's the traditional solution. Let's use some insurance products. I mean, nothing against that. That's very clever and makes us safe. On the other hand, there are really tools on the market which enable us to do at least a large portion of that in-house and without additional resources spent on insurance products. So this is an example of maybe a more modern one, more automated process, which allows us to have an overview about the portfolio instantly. We can do one analysis in a much faster way. That means more analysis in one period of time. Maybe even to cover the whole portfolio, not even to cover them one time, but also on a repeated basis. Let's say once in a year or once in a quarter. So this gives us the control over our portfolio in our own organization. Good, so we have heard such requests for something like this to be able to solve these problems for quite some years. And that's why we also have created a tool which is able to cover these needs which I described in a modern way. It's called Credit Catalyst, and it's a platform which on one hand side is able to pull the client's internal information, that means payment behavior, historical volume of disputes, any kind of, and on the other side it can pull our external data, financial or non-financial. Each of these particular information can be assigned a wage, different wages, and it can be applied, a credit risk model can be applied on them. That means the calculation go on in the background with the result either in form of the calculated credit limit or anything else you would need to set up. Consequently, not only the raw data but also the calculations already made and the results then can be easily transferable into a broad range of ERPs to enable you to enjoy the comfort of your own ERP which you are used to work with every day. So how can such an analysis start? This is the main dashboard on the Catalyst, and you can spot, you can see your whole portfolio right away. That means the widgets which you can see are your companies clustered into different groups according to different points of view. Let's say the first one is from the point of view of probability of default. The second one of the propensity of companies to become bankrupt, and underneath you can see also changes of probability of default scenario, so you can spot immediately let's say some dramatic drop in the ratio. So it's very good to see your portfolio from the helicopter point of view. You can immediately spot what can be let's say the most trickiest part. You just click on particular diagram and you are redirected immediately to the groups of companies, let's say, which are the riskiest ones. After this, of course, credit manager can decide whom will the task be assigned from the analyst, let's say to those analysts which already have some experience with particular cases, and that's why also this can work as a workflow tool as a task manager. Approval metrics can be incorporated. That means that the risk manager assigns the tasks. He can spot in what situations certain analyses take place. And of course, also in case that, let's say, the calculated credit limit exceeds the competencies of particular analysts, he can simply forward this to the team leader or the credit manager, for approval or refusal. So like this, you can have really clear view on all the tasks and all the analysis which are going on simultaneously. So about the third part of the presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about the results and also the case study. This is a credit limit decision process model of one of our clients. It is an international logistic company whose aim was to unify the whole its process within one platform, not to be necessary to skip from one table to another Excel to another spreadsheet again, etc. So what we done is that we took the whole process and we implemented it into the tool, into the Credit Catalyst, as a sequence of processes which cover the whole assessment of the client from the beginning, from the onboarding until issuing the credit limit. So, for example, their method consists of three steps. First step was filtering the companies based on the blacklist. In case the company is on a blacklist, it will not be issued any credit limit. The payment in advance is required. In case company is not on a blacklist, from the previous payment experience, it can move to step number one. That means in this step, it has to fulfill certain conditions. Let's say the shareholder funds can't be lower than a certain amount. Then also the turnover can't be lower than a certain amount. The EBIT can't be negative, and also other conditions. So after the companies fulfill all these conditions, they will be issued a credit limit. I'm sorry. Again, the height of the credit limit is calculated based on the internal scoring model, and this contains client's internal information about the company, about the payment behavior, and also contains the external data, our data, financial and non-financial, such as current ratio, shareholder funds, size of the company, industry, country, etc. So after this risk model is applied, we have the result in form of calculated credit limit, and the very last part, the last stage, is that the companies are divided into two different groups. Those which will be issued the credit limit directly and immediately, and those which will be insured. So those can be either the companies which calculated credit limit exceeds some certain volume, or those which come from the countries in which our client has certain doubts coming from the previous experiences. So after this is the example of the result itself. So easily on the left-hand side, you can see how what items were taken into consideration. On the right-hand side, you can see the result in color and also in the word. That means all of them fall onto are correct. And at the bottom, you can see calculation of the credit limit. So let's move forward. We already have the result of the analysis. What is also very user-friendly and very much helping by reducing the time-consuming work is that not just the data itself, but also the results, which are calculated in the background automatically, can be simply via different kind of web services integrated directly into your ERP. And that's really the environment you are working in. You don't have to skip between different systems just in order to get the results. You have them directly where you want to have them. In the preset cells, preset information are simply sent. And when already at this stage, it is also possible to make, we call it the perfect loop, where please concentrate only on the ERP because that's the only thing we can see. The ERP can send the internal information in the Catalyst. Catalyst can pull external information, financial or non-financial, into the Catalyst as well. All the calculations which are preset are taking place there immediately, and immediately sending also the result of the calculation directly back to your ERP. So what you see is on your ERP and the results you need to know. it is even possible to connect this with the insurance company's ERP. That means calculated credit limit can be sent to the insurance company, and insurance company can send back the evaluation from their point of view. So like this, you can really reduce manual input, reduce the time necessary for preparing one analysis, enables you to cover the whole portfolio, not only to analyze, let's say, 35% on your portfolio, even to make regular reevaluations. And the main purpose is to make your whole life easier and to let you concentrate on the real purpose, and that's analyzing and not working manually with the tables. So just to conclude, I would not say that there are good or bad processes, but I really think that there are those which are more or less efficient, because this is what we need. And this is an example of what's possible today. So thank you very much for your attention. In case you had any questions, just feel free to ask. Thank you. Yes, please.
This product is optimally targeted to what size customer?
To what size customer? To any size customer, basically. Of course, there are limits of pricing. I mean, but
optimally.
We generally target large companies and very large companies. But of course, it's usable also for middle-sized companies, depending on how demanding is their process.
Is the process scalable?
Yes, of course.
The amount of information that has come across, even in the final report stage, unless you are fully automated and heuristic in that any change in the process from period to period automatically goes in and warns you if there's a change that represents increased risk. For
Yes.
larger companies, that would be ideal.
Yes. So finish the question?
No, that's okay. I want you to give me feedback, because this is an optimal solution. And if I am IBM and I have infinite expense associated with running my business and I'm very risk sensitive, this is a good product, but only if I can deal with the exception items. So this plays in the background until it trips a lever that says increased risk you need to know about, and then it alerts the user?
Yes, of course. There's ability of the system to preset the risks. You can, or alerts, you can preset about which companies you want to be informed, also about which particular parts of the report or which particular information. Immediately, if there is a change in the system, in the data themselves, you can be alerted either in the email or in the system directly. So, yes, you can. Thank you for your question. Any other questions, please? Here.
Hi, Alex. Are you expecting any changes now after you have been acquired by Moody?
This is exactly the question I was experiencing. Yeah, I was expecting. Officially, so far, according to our policy, we're not allowed to talk about any transformation with Moody's. That's for the official. But me personally, I'm maybe naive, but I'm really honestly expecting good things to happen, because Moody's doesn't have the data as we do, but they have very strong analytics. They are crème de la crème in the world, and we have very good data. So if we combine our data with their know-how, this could be a really explosive combination. So let's hope. I don't know about Moody's exactly, but Bureau van Dijk is more than 800. Moody's is probably more, but maybe not much more, because there are more analysts. So Bureau van Dijk, it's 800. So don't know the precise number about the Moody's.
So the merger will probably result in 800 people resulting? You'll be left with 800 people after the merger occurs?
I don't think so, because they do not have sales teams. They do have, of course, but they work completely another way. Like people are approaching Moody's. Bureau van Dijk is approaching its customer. So that's something...
Okay, I'm having fun with you. I lived through two mergers.
Yeah. So is it going to be like you say?
Chaos personified, my friend. Your life will change in ways you cannot understand.
I already have
Enjoy
some
the
gray
ride.
hair, so yeah.
Or none
Looking
at all.
forward.
Enjoy the ride.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.